This is session 1, and we're going to reflect a bit on the first 10 years of the GPC with 3 of our longstanding and wonderful members, Hilton Applebaum, Ron Bruder, and Maria Eugenia Garces Campaña.
I'm here as a facilitator of this discussion, which is really an opportunity for some of our members to reflect, and I'm going to ask you to reflect very honestly.
So when I met Peggy 6-7 years ago, we had a dream, we had a vision, but we really didn't have the pieces in place to put it together. And fortunately for me, Peggy's organization, and Peggy helped in lots of ways. And one of the ways that isn't talked about much, and I haven't heard it discussed in the last few years, is it helped us, your staff helped us figure out how to plan, create a business plan, figure out priorities, because we had an idea, but we weren't on the ground. We've only actually been on the ground since June of '06, and I joined about 2 years before that. And so we knew what we wanted to do, but quite frankly, as they say, the best roads to hell or best ways to hell are paved with good intentions. We had a lot of good intentions, but we didn't have in place the mechanisms. We didn't have the staffing, we didn't have the business plan. And so by meeting other philanthropists, I was able to get a very good idea as to how other people were solving the same problems we were encountering. And probably even better than that, as you may or may not recall, you lent us some staff who sat down with us and helped us figure out how to put together all the planning and methodologies we needed to work as an operation. And so that was critical, because if we had faltered in the beginning, our credibility would have been shot. And we launched our first program a little under 5 years ago, and our growth has been exponential ever since then.
Each of us has a vision, and we try to implement our visions, but ultimately we are blundering into areas in which we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. Every day, every week, every month, we open Pandora's box. And there are all the unintended consequences of our interventions. And that's where Synergos and its interlinking circles are so fundamentally important. There's always somebody, somewhere, who has that experience that you can draw on. We take our area of particular interest, which is education, and particularly using whatever methodology or materials available for distance and mass learning. There are people here with whom I speak often. There are people here in other parts of the world where we would happily make our learning and our material and our experience available. There are people who are members of the GPC who have materials in other language. For example, we're terribly interested now in what we can do in Mozambique and in Angola. We've a huge experience in learning, and that's all there to be shared, and it is these circles.
And Peggy very kindly invited me to sit at this very important table, who I had no idea who anybody was there. I knew they were all very important. And I said, somebody said to me, oh, Peggy asked, well, Maria, will you share with us, what are you doing? What will you do with this foundation? Well, what we wanted to do was something that really would make a difference at the grassroots level in the area of Cali, where I come from. And this amazing community leader, a nun, Franciscan nun, was our mentor, our guide. She would say, well, we need to learn restorative justice. We have to bring this knowledge to Colombia, because we have all these guerrillas giving up their arms and all these gangsters. We need to do this. She had just learned about this with the World Bank in England. So she says, we must bring Archbishop Tutu or Nelson Mandela to Colombia. I said, oh, okay, wonderful. So, not knowing who was sitting next to me in the table, I said, well, I'm trying to see how we can do a conference in Colombia and learn about restorative justice. And then Tokyo Sequale was next to me, and he grabbed my hand very warmly, and he said, Maria, that's what we did in South Africa. You just have to bring your president to that conference, and I will promise I will bring you Nelson Mandela or Archbishop Tutu. I was absolutely, stunned, and I have a tendency to be very optimistic, and I believe I believe in fairy tales. I'm a believer. Out of this event, we were able to draft a piece of legislation for the justice law in the country. And after that, we've been just doing that kind of thing, facilitating people to come to Colombia with knowledge to share. In microcredit, we brought Mohamed Yunus to Cali. We just had another event where Synergos was very important in helping me identify the organizations in the countries of conflict that had used microcredit as a tool for peace. So we brought about 80 people from Nepal, Turkey, everywhere. And I tell you, I felt so comfortable and secure knowing I have this amazing group behind me.
So one of the things that Synergos tries to do, and I think we do it reasonably well, is to create the safe spaces within which people can develop these chains of trust that I mentioned earlier. And it's kind of, I'd like to think of it as a safe place we can come back to, because very often the world that is out there is extremely challenging, and what each of us is trying to do out there is difficult. And it's important for people to have safe havens to come back to. So I hope you will consider that. I certainly do. And I really appreciate the feedback that we've gotten in this session. Thank you so much.